In this unit, we will talk about the importance of socio-cultural context in learning and using a language. Socio-cultural context refers to the idea that language is closely linked with the culture and society in which it is used. What all this means is that language is learned not in isolation but in a specific socio-cultural context. Um, and what we need to do is raise the awareness of the learners or the users of the language about that particular socio-cultural context or different socio-cultural contexts in which the language is likely to be used. Initially, this idea of awareness of societies and culture was linked with learning a foreign language, and the society or culture was taken to be the society and culture of the target language. So it was considered important that learners of a language, let's suppose English, should also be aware of the culture and social norms of the English society. However, with the emergence of different varieties of English and the use of English in diverse socio-cultural contexts, it seems that this very idea of raising awareness of the target culture among the learners has implications for the use and learning of world Englishes as well. It goes without saying that the culture of a community has a deep influence on the language that they use. English has been adapted by different nations around the world, and the adaptation of English in different nations means that it is now being used in different cultures and not in the single English culture or at the most American culture. Since the culture or the awareness of the culture and society is important for learning and using a language appropriately, it is also considered important that we need to raise awareness of cultural differences among the Englishes that now we have around the world, the Englishes which are now being used and developed in different socio-cultural contexts. So we need to raise awareness of the international audience or international users of English about these cultural differences, and only when the international users of English are aware of these cultural differences between or among different Englishes, the successful use of English or successful communication is possible among these users or users from different countries. Let's take a look at this example. This is a dialogue which is, let's say, placed in American culture. We have this dialogue between a visitor and a host. The visitor is talking about thinking of cashing a check on Thursday, and the host reminds the visitor that Thursday is Thanksgiving. Now, to understand the implications of Thursday being a Thanksgiving, one needs to understand the importance of this festival or this occasion of Thanksgiving in American culture. Similarly, let's take a look at this excerpt, which is from Smith and Kachru. Um, it is cited in Smith and Kachru and is from Rajadhan. I'd like you to take a minute and read this excerpt. If you notice, there is a mention of Buddha, there is a mention of monks, there's also a mention of something called merit, making merit. The excerpt is, as we can understand, from the context of rice farming, but it is not from a context which is familiar to us. The socio-cultural context is not familiar to us. It is placed in Thai culture. So it's an excerpt from reading from a text which is based in Thailand culture. To understand or to appreciate the meaning this excerpt is trying to convey, we need to understand the holiness attached to Buddha, the sanctity attached to different monks, and making merit, the importance of making merit in the context of rice farming in Thailand. So unless we have this kind of cultural awareness, we cannot fully appreciate this text. Another example of this cultural difference can be seen in terms of grammar in Indian culture. If we compare the Indian English questions with questions in standard English, we can see that Indians use undifferentiated tag questions. As in standard English, you will make a sentence like, or you'll make a question like, you said you'll do the job, didn't you? The tag is also uses the same tense as is used in the main clause of the question. However, in Indian English and also other Englishes in the outer circle, including Pakistani English, we use undifferentiated question tags, which means we have this tag, isn't it, which we use in questions with all tenses. So we have this example, you said you'll do the job, isn't it? Now, this is not an example of bad English, but it is because the Indian English speakers believe that saying isn't it is more polite. So, this again has some cultural implications. Therefore, we cannot reject Indian English speakers thinking that they use bad English or deficient English, but we must understand that isn't it for them carries this implication of more politeness or has this meaning which conveys the idea of more politeness than any other question tag or question tag which is based on the same tense as the main clause of the question. So this kind of awareness is important to ensure successful communication among people who come from different socio-cultural backgrounds. We must also make this point very clear here that, of course, it is impossible for a person to be aware of all the cultural different differences in culture that we find in world Englishes. However, what is possible is that one should try to familiarize oneself at least with the culture and social context of the Englishes which one is likely to use frequently or regularly. Only when we have this socio-cultural awareness, we can claim to communicate with speakers of other Englishes successfully.